It's implemented.
Yeah, you know, I don't like this move you've got now. You've started adding this in the new format.
Asking questions?
That I've got notes, and I go, you know, okay, here's some things that I can say as the conversation heads that way. Just some kind of brain ticklers to remember. You just go, start of the episode, here's the deal. Good to have you guys with us. Norm.
What is?
Boom. You go, you son of a monkey. Yeah.
But then we won't ever get started.
Right? Because I'm always a slow starter.
We have to do this to launch the episode.
Right.
And that's what I have made my starting serve.
Yeah, your starting serve sucks. I hate it because since we haven't talked, you go, I have no idea what you want.
It sucks.
Yeah,
you got to return it. Today we're having a conversation about the confrontational leader, the good and bad versions of confrontation. Let's talk about that.
You are watching the Beyond Sunday podcast.
Okay, so today we're having the conversation about the confrontational leader.
That's why I showed up.
Yep. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Right.
I happen to know from just sharing some life with you, hearing you've had some confrontational leaders in your history.
That's not the word I would have used, but fair. Fair enough, I guess.
That's maybe the nicer way to say it at times.
Sure. Yeah, I think I get what you're meaning. Yeah.
So I think there are two different types of or lanes of confrontation.
All right.
There is good and bad confrontation, I believe.
That's fair based on conversations we've had before. I see where you're leaning, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the difference makers between good and bad confrontation. So let's say you needed to confront somebody on your team about something.
Okay.
What would be the things that you begin thinking through as you go to confront about an issue?
Can I back up one step, actually?
Sure.
All right. I would say even before you go to the point where you're going to say, hey, what do I need to consider as I'm confronting and I'm stepping into that moment? I think that's great, but I think there's a step before that that's it just came to my mind as you were saying, you know, hey, there's two, the good and the bad, that I think the first step is going on not here in the leader, you know, hey, what do I need to process? What do I need to be thinking about? I think it's starting here. We're kind of at the gut level, the heart level, if you will. I think the first question that's going to get us on one path or the other automatically is the heart of the confrontation. And for me, it would be, why do I feel like I need to confront this person? I think that question first is the big deal, because if my need for confrontation starts with, you know what, I'm so frustrated, I can't believe they've done this again. Oh, this is embarrassing. They've messed this up. And so when the source starts coming kind of from this gut level where you're saying, I was embarrassed, there's frustration, I'm angry. You know, a lot of these kind of hot emotions are in play. When that's where you're coming from, almost invariably the confrontation that comes after that is going to be ungood.
I would agree with that.
So, yeah, it's coming from, I want to feel better, and I'm going to do that by venting at you.
Yeah, some junk's going to come flying out in the midst of that.
Yeah, I'm unloading my frustration on you. All my anger at this is going to start unloading somewhere, and I'm going to purge it out of myself. Opposed to, I think there is a good place for it where, you know, we come up a little bit, and you're in this heart level where you're going, you know what, I need to confront because this is the best thing for the team. This is the best thing for our organization. You know, this is the right thing to do. I really care about this person on my team. And so, gosh, if I don't tell them that, how are they going to grow and get better? And so when my motivation now comes from, I want something to grow. I want it to improve. I want what's best for you, for the team, for our organization, whatever it is. Then the motivation comes. It says, I'm going to step into this, and I may not want to actually at this moment. It may be uncomfortable, and now I'm going to have to figure out how to do it, but I know it's the good thing to do. So I think that's an important first step.
Yeah, and one of the things you said I think is good. You talked about...
Only one thing? Wow.
Yeah, one of them. No. One thing that particularly
Can't
stuck
all be
out
home
to
runs,
me,
kids.
that was a second base hit.
Wow. It's getting worse.
No, that's good. That's good. It's just
I told him a home
it's a
run.
full team play.
It's a full team play. Wow. Our baseball podcast starting next month, by the way.
Yeah.
Join us as we cover the Wind Surge games.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
It's awesome, man.
But
anyway, as you said, one thing.
One of the things that you had said made me think about this, the reality that from a leader, when you're in a healthy position, you begin considering what is best for this person, this team, this organization, whatever this situation. And I think that reminded me and just made me process and think about the reality that I think in order for us to find success in continuing to grow, confrontation has to be a part of our culture.
Yeah.
In a healthy way.
Right.
Obviously.
Okay.
I don't think that there is a valuable space for poor confrontation. That's just unhealthy.
Meaning that heated, I'm unloading on you. That's what you mean by poor confrontation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's never going to be good. When you go,
right.
You know, our office is pretty confrontational. You know, we kind of hash some things out, and you go, oh, really? Wow, that must be an interesting environment. And you go, and you realize people just start just barking at each other.
Yeah, at each other's throats.
Just unload, and you just go,
okay.
You have to duck and cover
you start
all the time.
Pulling out weapons.
Metaphorically is what I meant.
Gotcha.
You know, but yeah, this is going to be a weird day. I can feel it already.
Dang.
But you're right. There's no space for that. And we have talked before that I've been in that environment where every confrontation from the leader was hostile. There wasn't no such thing as healthy confrontation. The organization doesn't grow. As a matter of fact, everybody becomes in a protective mode. I'm not trying to do my very best. I'm just trying to keep an eye out on how do I duck and cover so that I'm below your sight line, so that I'm getting things done so that you don't come at me.
Okay, so that's interesting. From your experience then in being in and a part of an organization with an unhealthy confrontational leader, where you kind of described that it felt like you're just trying to dodge bullets, basically, or dodge the explosion when it happens because we all know it's going to.
Sure.
What does the entire office culture team feel like at that point, sitting under a poor confrontational leader?
Right. At least in the environment that I've been in before, when it's kind of like that, there really isn't much of a team. Because everybody realizes that at any given moment, you may be on the firing line. So I've got to worry and work towards my thing. And so, you know, a lot of times people will talk about silos in organizations where you're looking at, I'm worrying about my department and things like that and our performance. In this case, you're saying, I'm just trying to do the right things to not get hit today. So I've got to focus on my thing. I can't worry about your thing. And so
it's an uncomfortable day.
It is. So you end up in those spaces, and sometimes you'll see in these very hostile confrontations, everybody else. No kidding. It's a bit like a public meeting. Everybody else just wants to lean back and go, I hope he doesn't notice me. I don't want to be next. So it's very unhealthy. There's a great deal of fear, and then what you have is once the leader steps away from that, is that the kind of survivors of the beating are all huddled together and there's this kind of commiseration of I can't believe what we're dealing with and everything else. And in those environments, then it's very undermining. Nobody cares about the leader. No one wants to follow the leader.
Right.
We just want to survive the leader. It is a completely dysfunctional environment. I would go so far as to say it is a fully toxic environment at that stage.
So is it fair to say, or have you ever experienced being under kind of a toxic leader or an aggressive, confrontational leader with any different culture, or do you feel like that leader naturally creates silos, division, aloneness of sorts as far as the team environment? Does that one leader destroy the entire structure of the team in most cases?
From the experience I've had, because I have been in a couple environments. I mean, one was really, really bad.
Yeah.
But I've been in a couple of environments where it's ungood. It's not healthy. And every time I have seen it happen, it does get, at least in degrees like that.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that, if you're in a large enough company, there may be people out on the periphery who don't quite feel that because it hasn't trickled all the way down. But I think there's always trickle down, because you'll have that point where the leader is impacting this first tier of leaders where they're directly interfacing with, they're causing that turmoil. But from that, those people living in that tension, living in that fear, are going to push to their people. I think you'll get exceptions, obviously. I think you'll get some really great leaders who are in those places who are going to defend their team, who are going to be very protective. They'll receive all of that, deal with it themselves, and then they'll try and work very clearly and closely with their team to break that. And so I think you can get some little pockets of health inside of those environments. But in general, the organization as a whole, I think, is going to go that way.
So if somebody is watching and they are in an unhealthy work situation or team situation where they're dealing with an unhealthy confrontational leader, what would be, from your experience then, approaches at dealing with it, growing through it?
Yeah.
Just gets me choked up thinking about it.
I know, it sure does, buddy. You'll make it, though. So from my experience, it, again, looking at that worst case scenario in my experience, the deal is that I was a pretty young leader at that point. I'm trying to grow, and a pretty young follower of Christ, honestly. And so I was encountering a lot of the words of Jesus and really starting to challenge myself about being different than who I was, and really processing a lot of stuff. So I think it was thankfully, a great combination of things for me personally, because having lived that out, in my case, for my team, anybody that I was interfacing with, and even among my peers, I was finding myself to where I did want to serve as that protector and defender of my team. That I'll receive these things, but I'm not going to translate that back down to you. The culture that I believe in, the things that I think we can do, I'm going to speak to that. For the role I had at that time, I had the opportunity to be able to speak in front of the entire company on occasion. And whenever I did, I would always speak encouragement and say, by the way, I would take the positive elements of everything that we were. We were a great company. We made a fantastic product. It was high quality. The facility was amazing. And you focus on the things that you can to encourage and elevate. And in all honesty, as you push the positive, it starts getting to a point where the leader has less and less to bark about, because we're outperforming him. And so in my case, what it was is after a while, you start learning what the hangups are. What are the things that are going to trigger you, that are going to really just set you on edge? With that thought, I can sit there and start saying, okay, come on, guys, we all know these things. I know we don't like it, but we know this is where he goes. This is where his fear leads him. So we're going to actually get out ahead of that, and we're going to perform really well so that there's nothing to be afraid of. And we're going to communicate back to him well so that fears don't build and we can deal with those things. So I think that's one level, dealing with the team and just holding to your values and saying, it doesn't matter what I experience. I'm not going to translate that to somebody else, because that's taking my fear and frustration and throwing them at you.
Right.
I'm going to bring things to you that I think are of value. There came a point at one stage where I confronted him. That was a terrifying day. At that day, all of my peers, there was something horrible that went wrong. And they were just, all gathered together talking about it. And I said, what are we going to do? And they go, nothing. We're just going to lay low and wait till he is done. And I just had a conviction from the Lord, honestly. It's like, that can't work.
David and Goliath.
And I thought, as I was walking back to go talk with him, I thought, for the first time ever in my life, may be fired today. And went back, and he and I talked. And as he and I were looking each other eye to eye, he said, well, what do you think? As he, kind of unpacked the situation. And I said, I'm here to tell you no today. And he's like, oh, really? And we began to talk. And, just the boldness that the Lord gave me in that moment, he backed down and agreed with me. I was like, whew. Wow, I don't have to call and tell my wife I got fired today. That's great. And we were able to then, in all honesty, minister to the team that was really hurt that day, the whole company wide.
Yeah.
And that was a good deal. And so I grew through those things, and it taught me how to face into adversity and how to deal. And actually, we got to a point where every time he would get upset, he got to this stage where he would call me and go, you won't believe what I'm seeing right now. And we can either do it your way or my way. And I said, we'll do it my way. And because of stepping into that moment, it then allowed this opportunity to say, I'm going to be the one who now speaks. And if we look towards the confrontational side on the positive, I'm going to have to confront this instead of letting him.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, there came a point where after enough time, I was really struggling because it was always just ups and downs. And we were never trending up relationally. And, I was reading in Proverbs, and it says in there, I'm paraphrasing, forgive me for not having the quote on hand, but in Proverbs it says that if you save a man of wrath, you'll only have to save him again. And it just sunk home deep into my heart that that's where I was. And I really began processing and praying, and I realized this isn't the place I'm supposed to be. That I've done what I could for the place, for the team, for the culture, but I'm fighting a battle where I'm not gaining ground. I'm just in a holding action right now. And eventually, found myself to where I felt good to release myself from that space and move into another organization. So
yeah. Okay, so you...
Long story for you guys.
Yeah. It's good. And there's a good segue there. So we can at least air out and get out in the open that bad confrontational leaders, they stink, they smell, it is obvious. You can pick it up from a mile away most times.
Yeah, you can feel it.
An odor to it.
Oh, yeah, you just know it in your gut when you feel like this is ungood.
That is not a good way to confront.
Right.
Period. So in the midst of that,
okay.
I think we've kind of established that. It makes sense to us. We can see that. What's the risk? And you hinted to it a little bit, but in general, maybe on broader terms, what's the risk of good confrontation?
The risk. So the challenge, the potential downside and things.
Yeah.
Wow. I think one of the big things is that as you're in that space, you're going to have awkwardness automatically. I mean, I'm going to tell you something that may be challenging, and there's an entire long conversation about feedback and how that works or anything. But anytime you say, hey, there was this experience and it wasn't the best, it doesn't measure our values, didn't meet expectations, or, it really violated, some boundaries or things that we have relationally, that anybody's going to feel awkward about that. So I think that's a risk. You're stepping into awkward space. But in all honesty, while I think it's important, and we can talk about that, about how we prepare ourselves as leaders to step into the confrontation, and we have to own how we communicate.
Yeah.
We can't own how they respond.
Right.
So somebody else may take this instead of, hey, I receive that, and I do receive it in a positive way. They could take it and just say, well, that's it. I guess our entire working relationship's over, and there's just so many different outcomes completely to ending the relationship. Well, if that's how you feel, I quit. Wow, that was escalating very quickly. Or it just may be that there's a tension that you live with for a couple days as you're passing each other in the halls until they kind of realize, oh, you don't hate me.
Right.
No, there was just a thing, and we needed to talk about the thing. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, but sometimes when people aren't used to that, and depending on their hurts and their past,
and oftentimes they're not used to it.
Right. Yeah.
It is kind of a countercultural reality to
Right.
give high feedback and good confrontation.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about with our team that our team listens a lot. I highly recommend it. Is the podcast At the Table by Pat Lencioni and the Table Group. And
Pat's probably watching right now. Hey, Pat.
Pat's a huge fan. We're a huge fan of you, Pat. That would be the best day ever. But the thing is that as we're listening to that, we talked about stepping into confrontation. He has an episode called, That's Not Good Enough. And as a team, so one of our teams watching from behind the camera, Em's back there. So she was there as we talked about this. As a team, we're like, oh, yeah, we're really good at calling each other out and saying, hey, we need to step up to that. And one of the things that we found out is as we challenge ourselves, we're like, are we? Are we really? And we had to admit, well, we're not the best at this yet. And we got into this really great discussion about a difference between being nice and being kind.
Yep.
And, being nice people, we hold back from confrontation. We just go, it's fine. I'll deal with it. They didn't mean it. And so we just take this issue, this thing, just put it in our backpack, and, one stone, you go, I can carry that. Well, you just keep piling them into this backpack, and suddenly you've got a really bad backache, and your shoulders are tired, and you just go, why? Yeah. Why do I want to push your face in so bad? I've got like all these issues with you I've never dealt with.
Yeah.
And it's cool if we can really process and go, you know what, this is more me than you. I'm just having a bad day, and release it. That's great. Doesn't go in the backpack. That's a totally fine outcome. But sometimes you can't just do that. You go, this hit a little too deep, or it's a little too big, too repetitive. We need to talk, and you haven't done that. And nice people do that. They just smile and get over it, but they don't. Yeah. They then start backbiting, resenting and all kinds of things. But truly kind people that you go, I want the very best for you, confront and share.
Yeah.
We're not just nice.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
I had somebody I was talking to a couple weeks ago, and I had asked them, I knew they were dealing with kind of a challenging work situation, and I had asked this person, hey, what happened with that? How's it going? Did anything come of it?
Right.
And the reply was, I just did the right thing and I buried it.
I just swallowed it like
I had this moment.
Acid.
I was like, oh no, wait a minute. Are you joking?
That's
like,
the right
are we
thing.
being funny right now?
No.
And so I think it is common culture for us to just bury it.
Oh yeah, I think the vast majority of folks would answer that.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of that too.
Done. Yeah,
it is far easier in some regards.
Right.
In the immediate, it's far easier to just say, big pill, I'm going to swallow this one though. Let's move on because, I can't think about what could be. Right. Again, the risk of confrontation, even in a healthy way.
Right. And
to what you had said, the reality is, I think the true risk is, even if we do it well, I can't control what happens past it.
Right. Hey, everybody. Future Norm here. This is us, post-normal recording. Our conversation went a little bit long. Mariah told us too long, so we're going to cut this dude in half, and we'll pick it up next time in our next episode and finish the conversation. We'll see you there.
This has been another episode of the Beyond Sunday podcast. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.